Piedmont Hospital, Then and Now, is our topic for the special, and the guest right now is talking about Newnan Hospital many years ago. Dr. Jimmy Thomason was here from 1967 until 1999 as the general surgeon. Dr. Jimmy, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You have had an exciting career here, and I think the first question I would need to ask you is, what's your earliest memory of Newnan Hospital and what was it like?
When the war between the states happened, Newnan was designated as an hospital town, and there were 7 hospitals, and surgeons from all over the South were sent in, and the hospitals were housed in warehouses, churches, homes, public buildings, and it was very, very active. And we have many Confederate soldiers and Union soldiers buried in the cemetery here because there was such a big battle in the Battle of Brown's Mill.
Right.
When the Union soldiers came in, and an overwhelming force of Union soldiers was defeated soundly by the Confederates, and so they were all treated here. So Newnan has always been sort of known as an hospital town. After Reconstruction, in the early part of the 1900s, things were going along real well. Buildings were being built on the Court Square, and so the industries were beginning to expand and so forth. And so there were a group of men who realized that since hospital care was necessary, there had been many little small 2 or 3 bed infirmaries, so to speak, around the city that were just inadequate, and they decided they'd get together and build a first-class hospital. Mr. Alton Wynne Arnold, who ran Arnold Mill and Onco Mill, gathered a bunch of the businessmen together at the Virginia House Hotel, and they raised $50,000 and sold stock to organize the Newnan Hospital Authority. The hospital was built in the early 1920s, and then on June the 1st, 1925, it was dedicated. And the building was praised throughout the whole state. There was something like 2,000 people that came to see the opening of the hospital. It was a gorgeous building, still is. It's the original building, and the architect was a man named Kennon Perry, who was very well known from Atlanta, and he built several homes and even built the county business office on Perry Street and Broad Street. But the hospital was all brick and concrete, fireproof, was well equipped, had all of the modern conveniences, sterilizers, operating rooms, and so forth, and they opened with about 20 beds. And the people in the town were so praiseworthy in helping the hospital. Sunday school classes, churches, businesses, individuals contributed to outfit rooms, and those plaques were put on the doors and on the walls to commemorate their gift, and they were really proud of the fact that they were involved in the development of the hospital. The ladies auxiliary formed, and they would be in homes, and they would sew blankets for the bassinets and so forth, and bandages and everything. So it was the ladies auxiliary started then, and later evolved into the gray ladies, then the pink ladies. So that's been an integral part of Newnan Hospital also. In 1936, the hospital, after the Depression, the hospital realized that they wanted to be an eleemosynary, a non-profit hospital, and so they filed with the federal government, and that was granted. So from then on, they were not a stock hospital, they were a hospital that was operated for non-profit. Now the people who organized this, Mr. Alton Arnold was one of the organizers, as well as his brother Henry C. Arnold, and Guy Cole, Dan Marjay, a lot of the people whose names historically, if you mention those names in the community, people realize that. But the one thing about that is the hospital continued to expand and grow, and the nursing home was also opened at the same time. And in 1960, in the mid-60s, the hospital joined the old portion of the hospital with the nursing home and expanded that to make more rooms. And we're sitting in what was named Old Sioux Street. And the Sioux Street was the street that you drove between the hospital and the nursing home.
So this was a street right
This
here
is a
where.
street.
Oh my goodness, I've never heard that story, Dr. Jimmy.
You look in the map and you'll see Old Sioux Street. And so when Sioux Street was closed off, the back entrance became the emergency room entrance, and the front became the main entrance to this building we're in right now.
So where the emergency room was for this hospital is still there today?
It is. That was the new hospital that was
Right.
built. And the hospital was built with funds that Mr. Ellis Penniston left in memory of his wife, Mildred Arnold Penniston, who was one of Mr. Elton's daughters. And through the years, Mr. Henry Cole was the first president. And through the years, I believe his son Hamilton was president. Guy became a board member. Susie's mother organized the Gray Ladies, and when Susie and I came back from the Navy, Susie was involved with the Pink Ladies. And during the course of the years, Emmeline, our daughter, was patient representative, and Jim in high school worked as an orderly, and he wore glasses as I do, and he would go pick up the patients, and they'd say, "Oh, Dr. Thomason, I'm so glad you came." And he would just laugh and say, "Oh, I'm so glad to see." So
he didn't tell him that he wasn't really you, right?
Exactly right. And so through the years, the family connections have remained strong. And as we speak right now, the fourth generation, our son Jim and his wife Jennifer are working with the new hospital in fundraising. And Guy Jr. is an internist who practices and uses Newnan Hospital. Kirby Arnold, Guy's son, was on the board. Guy was on the board. I was on the board. And Susie's daddy was president of the board until he died. So it has stayed sort of close to the family ties, but not, the families didn't so much run it. The families were just interested in serving
Right.
it. And so the hospital has been a pride of the community. Now, as things grew along in 1962, there was a need for expansion. And so there was a Hill-Burton Act that came out in the early 60s, where you had county funds, federal funds, and local funds that matched to build. And they built the Coweta General Hospital on Hospital Road, which is where PiedmontNewnanHospital campus is right now. It opened with 103 beds, and before they closed and before Piedmont Newnan bought it, they were up to about 140 beds. And Newnan Hospital expanded to about 100 beds through the years by adding wings and additions and so forth. So the expansion of the medical hospitals in Newnan has been a strong, vibrant force in the community. And even today, families who grew up coming to Newnan Hospital still prefer to come to Newnan Hospital. And they're thrilled that the new hospital will be online within a few weeks.
Right.
So it has been a historical labor of love for the whole community, not just the Arnolds and the Coles and the Monjays, but the whole community has fallen in, and you can find the names of Sunday school classes and churches and so forth in the old plaques that commemorate the fact that everyone embraced the idea of a first-class hospital as we do today.
Well, I was going to add just the rich history from the early 1900s until today, and the enthusiasm and the support that the hospital has gotten for all those years and continues today to support with the new facility is phenomenal. And when it opens, it's going to be so nice.
It is.
I've been touring it recently, and it's just all the new equipment and everything is just unbelievable. So it's going to be nice to see that open up.
Well, we're thrilled too. Kaylee Lofton was so nice to take Susie and me with Jennifer and tour a very limited portion of the hospital. We went through the emergency room, and I was just amazed at the size and the expanse and the ability to handle so many patients at one time. Right. And the operating rooms are just massive and so well equipped, and everything is just as modern as it possibly can be. And I'm so sorry that I can't practice.
Well, and I'm sure there are a lot of people in the community that wish you would still practice or could still practice, but we know that that's where you are in your heart, and you had many, many good years here. And
Thank you.
You helped a lot of people in this community, and you're still active in the community. You're just not practicing medicine.
No, I'm not, but I still love it, and it's nice to know that from time to time I can pass people in the grocery store or in church, and they'll ask me a question
Sure.
and ask for my advice, and it thrills me to death to feel like people still have the confidence in me to ask me a question like that.
Well, you've helped me a time or two when I've asked, so we'll save those little hints for just between us.
That's fine with me.
The second segment of the New Link special presentation, Piedmont Noonan Hospital Then and Now, highlights Michael Bass, President and CEO of Piedmont Noonan Hospital. It's so exciting to think about what's about to come, and this facility we're sitting in here now will soon be closed, and we'll go to the wonderful, amazing new hospital on Poplar Road.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about when Noonan Hospital sold to Piedmont, and also when the Noonan Hospital here was physically built.
Okay. This facility opened in October of 1962. And at that point in time, it was state-of-the-art and served the community well for 50 years.
Right.
Piedmont purchased this facility from the Noonan Hospital, Inc. board effective March 1st of 2007.
Okay.
So we've been operating as a Piedmont facility since then. We lease the facility on Jackson Street. Piedmont did not purchase that.
Okay, I was not aware of that. Okay. Now, it's going to be interesting just physically moving the patients. You know, to me, that's just a monumental task. How do you do that and maintain the care for the patients that you always strive to provide?
Well, it's interesting, the move of the patients from here to the new facility will occur over about 2 hours. And we will have spent probably 14 to 15 months preparing for that 2-hour move.
Is it going to be a caravan so that the reporters and everyone can watch and stand along the line like it's a parade?
I don't think so. It's going to be, we're going to start at 5 a.m.
Okay.
And so should be probably still dark at that point in time, but we will transport the patients, the few that will be remaining here, starting at 5 a.m. on May 8th that morning, and then we should be finished, quite frankly, by 7:30.
Now, will there come a time prior to May 8th that you would not admit a patient?
We will admit patients here, including on May 7th.
Okay.
And then beginning May 8th, the morning of May 8th, all admissions will be at the new facility. And basically that's when the last transition will occur. So any patients that are still here, we will move them over.
And I'm assuming, based on the number of patients you will have on May 8th, that you will have contracted with ambulance companies or EMT facilities to come and transport those patients, right?
Right. We've contracted with a company that specializes in this type of move.
Oh, huh. That's interesting.
That's what they do, and they do it extremely well.
Well, I can imagine, because the last thing you would want is to have something happen in that transition with a patient, particularly that's under critical care, you know, because that could cause a problem.
Correct. And what we'll do is the nursing shift, the clinical staff coming on duty and in the morning of May 8th will report to the new facility. They won't come here.
Right.
So they will basically be getting the new facility ready. The night shift here will have prepared the patients to be moved, and so they will escort the patients out to the ambulances, load them up, get everything ready, wave goodbye. They'll go home. Their shift is ended. The ambulances will go over to the new facility, and the staff that have just coming on board, they're fresh and ready to go, will greet them right there at the ambulance and take them up to their pre-assigned room, and we anticipate it's going to go very, very smoothly.
And also, I can imagine there's probably been a lot of training that has already taken place and will between now and May 8th to make sure that the clinical staff and everyone that's employed here knows exactly what the new procedures, the new equipment. Has that been a challenge?
It's been a challenge would be an understatement. We started this process over a year ago, and really looking at how every single department in the hospital will function in its new facility. And for every single department, it's a document been developed of all the new procedures, policies, how that department must work in a new facility. We've got work plan organization documents, WPOs, and that's for every single department. In April, by the 1st of April, the new facility will be stocked, fully equipped, and will be functional. And we're going to take the month of April to orient staff, both clinical staff, employees, and medical staff, orient them to the building, and then practice. Practice, practice, practice.
Are you going to get employees to be pretend patients while they practice?
No, but we will have a lot of drills. Drills. And the analogy I give people is that if we open a new restaurant and we don't get the steak cooked exactly the way it was ordered, then we make up for it by giving the patron a free dessert. We can't do that.
No.
So we've got to make sure we practice so that, for example, if a code blue is called,
right,
and it's code blue 736, that the people who should respond to that know where 736 is, and they know the fastest way to get there. They also know where the crash cart's going to be and all of the supplies and so forth. So there will be most of April will be just rehearsing and practicing and orienting.
I can't imagine, but I know that you all have had a long time to plan, so I feel confident that it will come very smoothly to everyone. So I know that's exciting. Let's talk about your staff. Will the new facility enable you to bring on more clinical staff and more medical staff, or is this, because it's a new facility, is it bringing more physicians in to practice here?
Kind of all of the above.
Okay.
We are going to have probably about 25, 30 new physicians that will be establishing offices in Coweta County that perhaps don't have offices here. That will be an incremental growth. Really the plan though is that day one, we don't anticipate there'll be a lot of change. I think that it's going to, for us, we anticipate it'll be more of a ramp up. The two areas that we believe will be most immediately impacted will be our emergency department, where it's located, and more capacity. We really believe that we'll see an uptick in that. And the other, quite frankly, is in our women's services. We've got 2 new OBGYN groups that are going to be locating in our new medical office building. They will be in their offices by the time we move into the new hospital. And so a lot of, for example, deliveries are already anticipated to be done in the new hospital in May.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
That we're bringing in new physicians into the area with specialties, because I'm very familiar with a lot of the physicians' practices that are moving into the medical office plaza. And some of them are coming from Atlanta or Peachtree City or Fayetteville, and that brings specialties that we may not have had in the community, but maybe not, or maybe it's just competition, and it gives our community residents another option of more physicians to choose from.
Well, that's true. This facility, again, it served the community well, but it was designed in 1958, and things have changed a little bit technology-wise. A surgical suite back then, the only piece of equipment you had probably was the anesthesia machine. Nowadays, if you have a neurosurgeon that's going to be doing complex procedures, that surgeon may have 2 radiographic C-arms in the room. We'll have PACS units for viewing films and images, digital images. And the rooms here just aren't big enough for that. In the new facility, that problem goes away. So we'll be able to bring new specialties here that have not been able to practice here simply because of facility limitations.
Will there be departments of the hospital that will actually remain in this facility?
There will not be any that remain in the main building here. Our medical office building next door will continue to function, and we'll have operations there. Our wound treatment center, hyperbaric center, will not relocate until sometime later. So there'll be a couple of things that are not in the main facility that will stay here on this campus until we find a better place to locate them.
Well, and then lastly, for this segment, to wrap up before we actually go to the new facility and show our viewers how nice and wonderful that's going to be, what's going to happen to this campus?
I am asked that question, I guess, every single day. We don't know. We have retained a real estate broker to come in and do what's called a best use analysis. And basically what they're doing is they're looking at the facility and looking at different ways it could be used in different functions, how much it would cost, how it would have to be reconfigured for the different ways, to put together some cost estimates. And once they get that finished, then we'll know how to go out and market the building to whatever
Right.
specific company could use it that way. But right now we have no plans for it.
Well, it's just going to be so exciting, and the amount of new businesses that are popping up daily out in the area where the hospital is going to be is so exciting. And then one question I know our viewers are going to want to know is, what different signage are you going to have to make sure that the ambulances and the visitors don't come here? And just any update on the exit off of 85 to get to the new hospital easier than the way they would have to get to it now?
As far as the emergency department here, we will have large illuminated signs at the street entrances to the campus informing folks that the emergency department is not open. We're also going to be stationing an ambulance here at the entrance to the ED here 24 hours a day for probably a couple of weeks, just to kind of catch those people that at 2 a.m. chest pain forgot. And we'll work through that for a couple of weeks, and then after that time we can probably eliminate that here. As far as signage, there will be adequate signage, the big blue H's and so forth. That's part of some of the minutiae we've been in, quite frankly, in planning the move. So there will be appropriate signage to get people, until the new exit is finished, at least route them from exit 41 or from exit 47.
Michael, thank you for joining us for this segment.
You're welcome.
And telling us a little bit about the history and what the transition plan is going to be like going forward. I know our viewers will want to stay tuned for the third segment of our special entitled Piedmont Noonan Hospital, Then and Now, because now we're headed over to 745 Poplar Road to see the new facility, so stay with us. Welcome to our third segment of Piedmont Noonan Hospital, Then and Now. Now we are in the lobby, in the middle of construction at the new facility with Michael. And this, I understand, is the last area to be finished?
It is.
And why is that?
Well, being the front entrance, certainly a lot of traffic through this area throughout the construction project. A lot of very fine finishes here, and we wanted to wait until the very end to do that. The rest of the hospital fairly well finished, but don't want any damage in this area.
This is going to be so nice, and behind us we have the stone fireplace, and it's beautiful, but I understand it only took them a couple of days to lay the stone, and it looks like it's so tedious and it would take weeks or whatever, but
these guys are good.
The craftsmen
they really
know exactly
are.
what to do.
They know exactly what they're doing.
Right.
Very good.
Tell us about the campus, the acreage of the campus, and a little bit about how and why you set up the facility exactly on this property as you did.
Okay, we have about 105 acres here. We cleared 36 or so for the facility, and we're preserving the rest as much as we can. The campus itself is located almost dead center Coweta County, and so we wanted that symbolically to say this really is for all of the county. It's at the site of a future interstate exchange, and just everything about this site was ideal.
Michael, tell us about the campus and how the building is structured on the 105 acres, and maybe why you chose to place it like you did here on the property.
Okay. Well, it faces Poplar Road. It's right next to a future interstate exchange, which we felt would be very important as this facility and the community we serve continues to grow and so forth. It's ideally located in the middle of the campus so that we have plenty of room to expand over the years, and ideal setting.
That's great. And then also this facility is LEED certified, which means it's an all-green facility. Is that correct?
Yeah, LEED, L-E-E-D, stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, which means that there are a lot of factors related to that. Not only is it energy efficient, we use as much natural materials in the construction, such as the stonework, all of those things to show that we're trying to be environmentally friendly with this facility.
That's great, and I know there are very few of those, I think, in the state of Georgia. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That's
very
great.
few in the southeast, actually.
That's great. Now, as we move now to our next department, we're going to see the latest in technology in women's services. We're going to see a patient room. We're going to see the operating room and the emergency department. So, are you ready to go?
Let's go.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Well, welcome to the emergency department at Piedmont Noonan Hospital, a department that you probably hope you never have to come to, right, Michael?
That's true.
To my right is the entrance for the ambulances, and then behind me are the two trauma rooms. Tell us about the trauma rooms, Michael, and what would constitute having someone in that trauma room?
The trauma room is just a larger size room that's fully equipped with all types of equipment that would be more than your typical aches and pains that we see in an emergency department. This could be anything from a knife wound, gunshot wound, traffic accident, where we really need a lot of people, a lot of equipment.
Okay. And how many rooms do you have here in this facility compared to the hospital on Hospital Road?
Total capacity here is 22 examination treatment rooms plus the 2 trauma rooms. Where we are now, we have a total of 15. And so a nice increase in size.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, you'll see throughout the discussion here, there are red lights positioned at several of the corners. What do those red lights really mean here?
Well, we always wanted the facility to be patient-focused, family-focused, and so forth. So throughout the facility, one would find these. And the intent is that if a patient or family member has a question about anything, you know, whether they find something or just a question, they should look for one of these fixtures, and seated at that fixture will be someone who can answer the question, direct them, and so forth. And this is throughout the facility.
That's great, because I know in a lot of large hospitals that you go into today, you don't want to interrupt a nurse, and then you don't know who to ask.
Right.
You know, so that's great. That's and it's very. I laughed earlier and said it looks like the Jetsons era. You know?
A little bit. You're right.
But it's the real,
and I remember that era well.
So do I, obviously. So Michael, where are we now?
We're in one of the operating suites, main operating suites on the 2nd floor of the hospital. The 2nd floor is our surgical and interventional services floor.
The entire floor?
The entire floor.
And you have 8 operating rooms.
8 main ORs.
Compared to how many now at the current facility?
Well, we have 5 at the Hospital Road campus. One of them fairly large and the other 4 a little bit smaller than that one.
So the entire floor is dedicated to surgery?
Surgery and other interventional services such as cardiac cath, interventional radiology, endoscopy, and so forth.
Now, from my understanding, I've not had the need to have surgery at Piedmont-Newnan Hospital. Apparently these rooms are a lot larger than your surgery rooms.
Quite a bit larger. If you think about it, as I think I mentioned earlier, back in 1962, there wasn't much equipment in an OR that needed to be, but nowadays we need a lot of room for a lot of sophisticated equipment, and these can handle it.
Well, and you can tell from the lighting and everything, but one thing that intrigued me was the Bose stereo system in the ceiling with all the speakers, because the doctors now can bring in any of their music they want. So tell me about that.
Well, I mean, historically, surgeons have liked to work to their own type of music. And it really helps them focus and do away with distractions. And so we've made sure that these operating suites have a very fine sound system for whatever type of music they want to listen to while they're doing their thing.
And I bet you can tell the type of music you hear based on what doctor's in. Can you pair that up?
No, the OR staff know. They can hear the music and say they know exactly which surgeon is in the room.
Now, is there anything else technologically here that's different, like completely different, or is it just upgraded?
Well, a lot of things. For example, you notice a lot of booms around the room, nothing on the floor. So we wanted to make sure that cables and wires, anything that normally would be on a floor in an older type technology would not be here. So we have everything from the high intensity LED lighting to the monitors where the surgeons and other staff can look at the latest in imaging and so forth. Anesthesia, everything is ceiling mounted, and it just really makes you a good wide open space.
I bet the doctors are going to love this, aren't they?
They are. This room we're in, of course, has a window
exactly. So
in the back.
That helps, surely.
And let me tell you, I can imagine there's probably some kind of a lottery going on right now amongst the surgeon as to who gets the rooms with rooms with a view.
That's great. So Michael, as we wrap up, is there anything else about the surgical floor that we may have overlooked? Anything else you'd like to add? Well, the interventional part of it is, for example, a cardiac cath lab and interventional radiology lab, which will be right next to it. They're essentially equipped the same, identical, and that'll allow us to do a lot more procedures, a little more sophistication in terms of services we haven't been able to do here before. We'll now be able to do them. See, that's great, because then that keeps our residents here in the community. That's right. For Piedmont-Newnan Hospital to serve them, rather than them having to go to Piedmont Fayette or Atlanta or wherever. Right, the care you need close to home. That's right. So now we're off to the 4th floor. We are, and I'll tell you all about that very special floor. Great, let's go. We're standing in the LDR room. Michael, what does that stand for?
Labor, delivery, and recovery. So mom labors here, delivers the baby, recovers for a couple of hours, and then the baby and mom go to a postpartum room.
That is incredible, because then you can have family members in if you want. How things have changed since I had my children.
They have, indeed.
Well, and the ceiling lights are actual surgical operating room lights, so that everything can be done right here in this one room.
Remotely controlled from the wall behind you, intensity level, where they're focused and everything. It's high tech.
And then on the far wall, this would be the head of the bed, right? And on the far wall is the big screen TV. So the mom and the family can relax while she's in labor. Yeah, that's changed too.
Yeah, that's changed too.
Since I did mine. What else is on this floor?
Well, we have 2 C-section delivery rooms, surgical suites. We also have a newborn nursery and a 6 private room NICU, neonatal intensive care unit.
Right. That is amazing. So do you expect to have more deliveries at the new facility than you have now in the current facility?
We fully expect that our deliveries will probably double within several months.
Yeah, well, that's great too, because I know a lot of young moms have not chosen Piedmont Noonan in the past, and now why not? It's state of the art, and then doctors are coming in from the other areas, so that's great news.
It is.
Good. We are now going to wrap up our New Link special with a beautiful view. Michael, we are now on the roof of the new Piedmont Noonan Hospital. This is amazing. The view is unbelievable.
It is, isn't it? You can see the entire county, it seems like.
Yes, you can. Well, we want to thank you for taking your time to show us this wonderful facility. Thank you again so much.
You're welcome.
And to our viewers, we hope you have enjoyed the New Link special presentation of Piedmont Noonan Hospital, Then and Now. As you can see, the sky's the limit in healthcare in our community.